The playoffs are here in the CFL, so what can we expect from the two postseason games this week? Let's break it down. It is playoff time in the Canadian Football League. There is no better time than playoffs in football. And in the CFL, it's something different, man. So very excited that CFL playoffs are here. I think it's gonna be a really, really good weekend in the Canadian Football League with a couple of pretty good games. I do have my best bets piece. It doesn't look like it has been posted just yet, but the best bets will be up on 3 Down later this week, so make sure you check that out. So because of that, I'm not going to give every pick that I gave there, but let's break the two games down. We start in the East, where the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, who, when there's only 8 teams, they're actually an East Division team, but they now cross over into that to take on Montreal. When you look at the stats this year, it is a little bit misleading on both sides because both teams have dealt with injuries and inconsistency all season long. But Montreal, they get banged up in that last game, but for the most part, Montreal is getting healthier, and specifically at quarterback with Davis Alexander, who hasn't lost a game as a starter this season. So I'm kind of trusting that. I give the check mark there to Montreal against Winnipeg at quarterback. I think Davis Alexander getting back, getting healthy, getting into that rhythm the last couple weeks of the season helps them out immensely. I'll have the note in the 3 Down, but I believe it's 2 of his 3 games he's gone for over 300 yards passing and doesn't have an interception yet in that game or in that time. So really good spot for him to kind of thrive here against a Winnipeg defense that the numbers I think look better than it has actually looked on the field this year, but they are a decent unit, but not one that I think should give Alexander or Philpott a whole lot of trouble this week for Montreal. On the Winnipeg side, Zach Collaros, they have had a very difficult time keeping him healthy, and we'll get to that in a second, but he hasn't looked good. Even in the times where he's been healthy, he hasn't looked all that effective this year. And this Montreal defense, you've been able to pass on him a little bit, but I think now playoff time, they are, again, for the most part, healthy, and I don't love the matchup. The big X factor in this game is going to be Brady Oliveira. I know, saying the X factor and then going on to list a former most outstanding player. Yeah, but Oliveira had, in the game that mattered between these two teams, he had 137 yards and a touchdown against Montreal, and if he has another big day, that really does open up a lot of things offensively that Winnipeg can do, because Montreal has struggled against the run at times this season. So Oliveira is in for, I think, a very good day for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Will it be enough, though? Remains to be seen. The two big things that I'm focusing on in this game, though, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers have really struggled protecting Zach Collaros this season. They are one of the leaders in giving up sacks in the Canadian Football League all year, and the times where they didn't are times where they threw the ball 8 times. So I have a real concern about that because Montreal's pass rush, they disguise it really well, and they are very aggressive with that. And so I could see them giving Collaros all kinds of problems in this game because of the creativity that they have and the relentless nature of that pass rush against an offensive line that just struggles. They just do. The other one is Winnipeg struggles with turnovers, and Montreal is a ball hawking defense. Now, I think part of that is the offensive line has struggles, and so Collaros has a few moments and just has to get the ball away. But Montreal forces a lot of those. They disguise coverages very well, and it's a bad matchup, I think, for Winnipeg. So when you look at kind of a side-by-side of a lot of the kind of traditional stats, it looks relatively even. But you watch the games on the field, I don't think it's close. And you look at some of the other bigger ones to look at, protecting the quarterback, protecting the football, it's all Montreal. So because of that, I like the Alouettes in this spot. There's a couple other plays I suggest in the best bets on 3 Down, so check that out there later this week, or follow me on social media, and I'll post the link when it gets posted. On to the West Final, semifinal, where it'll be Calgary against the BC Lions. It's interesting how these two teams have been ships passing in the night. Calgary gets off to this amazing start to the season, absolutely dominant, and they gave everyone so many problems. Like, just the Riders finished the season as the best team in the Canadian Football League, and Calgary dominated them completely. Both lines of scrimmage, absolutely dominate them. While BC, Rourke gets hurt. And then the offensive line is bad. The defense can't stop anything. And they just can't really get into that rhythm. But everything changed for Calgary when Florian Aumalade goes down with the injury, where BC, I don't know if there was a player ad or anything that kind of flipped that switch. It's just Rourke has been Superman. He has been unbelievable this year. But Calgary has fallen off as BC has gotten better. That allowed the Lions to pass the Stamps for second in the West, which I as the season was going on, didn't think that would be possible. But now it is. And now Calgary has to go into BC to take on this Lions squad. And look, I get Calgary has addressed a couple of things on defense, and I get that they have gotten healthier. But without Aumalade, it has been night and day. I don't like to give all the stats I give in the 3-down piece, but this one I can't not. With Aumalade in the lineup, Calgary played 11 games. They went 8-3 and gave up an average of 19.4 points per game. You stretch that out over the whole season, it's the best defense in the Canadian Football League. Without Aumalade, the Stamps went 3-4, and that's because they won their last 3. And they gave up 28.8 points per game. And that number is only as low as it is because they played an Edmonton team that was eliminated and a Toronto team that had Jake Daggy as their quarterback. So this could be a lot worse. That 28.8 would be the worst of teams that made the playoffs in the Canadian Football League this season. So that guy is, there are other pieces that are getting healthier. They're coming back. They made some trades to try to help out on the defensive front as well. But Aumalade is kind of a one-of-one and a real game breaker on the defensive side. If he is not there, and he's not, I just don't think they'll be able to put a rush on Nathan Rourke, but finishing those rushes is a different story. I think Rourke still has a big game. I saw the prop. He's at the number's 340 for Rourke. I'm not going to go that high. That's insane. But he's going to have a good day. And like Vernon Adams, the numbers don't do justice what he has meant to this football team, but it also hasn't been great at various different points, numbers-wise, as the season goes on. He has been awesome. Any Calgary troubles have not been because of him. It's the defense that has had a bit of an issue here. He has had one good game against his former team, one not good game against his former team. He's going to need to be excellent in this game. BC, their numbers against the pass are actually all right, but I do think you can kind of get to them a little bit, but he has to kind of match what Nathan Rourke can do. But again, like the East semifinal, this one could come down to the run game as well. Dedrick Mills has had a couple of very good games running the football against BC. The first one, they kind of went away from him because they were down by 30, but he averaged like 12 yards a carry in the first matchup. He ends up with it's around 150 yards in the 2 games and a couple of touchdowns. And again, both of those they were trailing in, so they kind of abandoned the run. But he is someone where if they can get that going early, get Vernon Adams into some easy second down situations and sustain some drives, I think you can kind of dribble the air out of the ball if you're Calgary a little bit and kind of limit the amount of time that Rourke has to work his magic for this BC team. The other big matchup is going to be Calgary secondary. BC is the best in the league at coming up with big plays down the field. No one had more completions of 20 yards or more, like depth of target, than Rourke this season. And Calgary's defense was one of the best in the league at limiting those. So it is a battle of the Titans in that spot. This is going to be a very fun matchup. I don't think it's going to be like their playoff game a couple of years ago where it was clearly BC had the advantage, but I do think the Lions, Rourke is a different animal than anyone you're going to be dealing with right now, and I think he alone gets them the win. So I like Rourke and the Lions to advance to Regina for the West Final. What are your Grey Cup thoughts and playoff predictions here in the CFL? Let me know in the chat or in the comment section below.